Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head over the water to Copenhagen once again, and we're going to go to probably one of the best known Danish craft breweries. So we're going to go to Nørrebro Bryghus and we're having a taste of their Stuykman Witbier tonight, and this is actually the first wit beer I've reviewed since I moved over to Sweden, so should be quite an interesting one. And I've heard that the main reason these guys are really quite well known is because their brew pub was rated the best in Denmark. So yeah, it should be a really quite interesting beer for us to review, and they've got quite a high kind of turnover of beers, if you like. They produce a new one every month as well, so if you go to the brew pub, apparently there's a lot of different things for you to try. But anyway, as is usual with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery. If you do want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual websites are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my future reviews that I'll do from Nørrebro Bryghus, and also my Facebook profile for the channel. Please like it, and also my Untappd profile too, and feel free to add me as a friend on there and just get in touch in whatever way you wish. Always interesting to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and I will apologise in advance, as I always do with my Danish reviews, if any of the Danish pronunciations are not quite right. But anyway, Nørrebro Bryghus are based in the Nørrebro district in Copenhagen in Denmark, and they were founded by Anders Kismager back in 2003, and he's a former brewmaster and also a general manager of the Carlsberg brewery, who no doubt you will have heard of. But the brewery opened originally as a combined brewery and restaurant in Rysgade in Copenhagen, and they also added a second brewery in 2005, and this brewery is in Hedehusene, and it's had an original capacity of 400,000 litres of beer per year, but they've actually expanded that, I believe, over the last little while. But the brewery apparently had financial troubles and issues with the unions in the late 2000s, and Anders Kismager, one of the founders of the brewery, actually left his position as a director in 2010, but he still works as a consultant and also owns a share of the brewery. But the brewery actually now has a new brewmaster, and it's run by Frederik Higard, and over the course of their history they've apparently brewed over 200 different types of beer, and as I told you, apparently there's a new one every month. They've got a small range of bottled beers, of which this guy is a member, but most of their kind of random beers, or these monthly beers, are to be found in the Nørrebro tap house. So definitely something you want to go and visit if you find yourself in Copenhagen. So to list the beers you can get in the bottles from these guys, there's the New York Lager, which is the quite common one over here in Sweden, Ravensborg Road, the red beer, Bombay Pale Ale, Stuykman Wit, Bowman Pilsner, King's Country Brown Ale, and also Lemon Ale as well. The Lemon Ale is supposed to be quite an interesting and unusual one, so if you do come across a good range of their beers, that is probably a good one for you to go for. But just pick a style you like, and I'm sure you probably will quite enjoy it. And this one actually is an organic beer, so I'll just bring up the camera quickly and let you have a little quick look at the artwork in this one before we open it up. But as I said, you've got those small range of bottled beers, of which this guy is a member, and they have a load of other ones that appear on the taps at their brew pub. So do go and check it out in Rysgade over in Copenhagen. So I'll need to go there and have a look the next time I go too. But as you can see, it's got a kind of quite simple modern art take on this one. There is the common, the usual Nørrebro Bryghus bottle cap on this one. You can see on the back it has the organic mark of the European Union, so should be quite a nice one for us to try. So this one is 5%, it's a wit beer, and I believe it has German Pearl hops. It also has Åland wheat in it, which is a native Danish strain of wheat, and they've also added coriander and orange to the brew as well. I think that's what it tells you on the back. It just says, yeah, apple cider Stuykman Witbier. Yeah, it says it just tells you a bit about the flavour as well, the usual kind of things that they say about their beers being very tasty and stuff like that in Danish. So just let you see that. Don't know how well it's focusing, but there you are. So without further ado, let's get on with this guy, or let's get this guy open and get on with the tasting. Really quite looking forward to this one. So, but as you can see, nice kind of smoky opening on this beer. There's quite a lot of visible sediment in this one. When I brought it out of the fridge, actually, it's only been in the fridge for, I think, overnight actually, but there was still quite a lot of visible sediment on this one, and apparently that is one of the things you'll notice with the Nørrebro Bryghus beers. They do sediment, but that's a good sign, especially when they're organic. You do expect that. you can actually smell a lot of the nice wheaty characteristic coming off this beer, and you can see the little particles of sediment too. As you saw, there was a kind of half finger of a frothy, white, kind of creamy coloured head there, but that's just faded away to be a very thin foamy layer, but it looks very, very nice. There's a few big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass there, and a couple of little ones just going up towards where the head was previously. If I put my fingers behind it, you can see that it does have some level of transparency, but mainly this is a hazy beer. There's a lot of little particles of sediment floating around there, and I think it's probably quite a good descriptor for this beer. It probably is a nice kind of hazy, orangey straw colour actually. That's probably a very good way to describe it. If I put the light through it there, you can see it is actually quite a bright orange colour. It almost reminds me a little bit of Iron Brew that we get back in Scotland. It's almost that colour, but not quite as clear. So yeah, quite an interesting looking beer this. So let's have a smell of it and see how we get on. So yeah, as you would expect with this beer, when it's a wit beer, it is very malt forward. So you've got some nice big bready aromas coming out of it, and there's a definite kind of yeasty sweetness in there too. I always find yeast comes across as a sort of dusty, doughy bread characteristic, and you can definitely pick that up in this one. And as you would expect, there's a little bit of the wheaty character coming out. In this one, it's noticeably smooth. I can't speak English. I always struggle with Danish pronunciation in these videos, but then sometimes I just can't speak English either. But yeah, the wheat characteristics coming out of this beer are quite noticeably smooth and kind of slightly sweet actually. It's quite interesting that. But there's maybe a little bit of peppery spice in there as well. The coriander is definitely coming out. You can really pick that up. And maybe some kind of slightly orangey notes as well. It said they added orange into the brew as well, so it's coriander and orange that they added into this brew. The orange isn't so noticeable. It comes across as just a little bit juicy, but it's the coriander that's the one that's really noticeable, and that big, dusty, doughy, bready character coming out of this. It's really nice. And you can also pick up a little bit of the grassy characters of that German Peril hop that's in this beer. Really quite nicely done, I have to admit. So without further ado then, let's get stuck into this guy. So this is the Stuykman Witbier from Nørrebro Bryghus in Nørrebro in Copenhagen in Denmark. Skål! And that's really nice actually, really quite a smooth beer this one. Yeah, that's the thing about this, it's a really smooth and really drinkable beer. A lot of the time I found when I had German Hefeweizens and things, they were always really quite heavy, and you could only ever drink one of these beers. But the first thought that comes into my head with this one is that this is a wit beer or a wheat beer that you can really, there's a real possibility of sessioning in this beer. So yeah, you've got some big bready flavours in this one, as you would expect. They just blanket the middle of the tongue. You've got some of the sweeter yeasty characteristics just on top of that, they just go right into the middle of the palate there. I'll just get the rest of this guy out and into the glass. But a lot of the kind of sweet yeasty characters in this beer, they just go right into the middle of the tongue, and you can feel the wheat on there. The wheat comes out just with a little touch of spice and gives you a bit of dry character as you go into the latter part of the beer. The wheat is very smooth, and you can really, it's always an interesting point about the beer. The wheat, when you put wheat in the malt base, usually you can tell the different strains of wheat almost as if you were just telling a different type of malt. So really quite cool actually. And the Danish wheat that's in this one is really quite, it's really very smooth and just has a little bit of a sweet character to it. So quite interesting. So definitely give this guy a try if you want a proper Danish wit beer. But yeah, the malt base in this one is really nice, and as I say, it's very smooth. Wheat characteristic is really quite unique, but that just blankets the middle of the tongue. There's a bit of the kind of dusty, yeasty character in there too, and that nice smooth wheat flavour in there, particularly in the middle at the back of the tongue, right in the middle of the back of your tongue there is where a lot of that is coming out. But there's some nice hoppy characters coming out around the edge of the palate too. The German Pearl hop is one that gives you a really smooth, grassy characteristic, and you can get that all the way around the edge of your tongue there, down to the back corners. When you come to the very front part of the tongue, you get a little bit of the dry and slightly floral, aromatic character coming off of the Pearl hop, but works really quite nicely actually. The flavours in this beer blend together very, very well. The coriander in this one's really noticeable as well. It's almost as if it's just infused into that bready malt base there. So just pay attention to your palate, and you'll notice all these flavours. Just behind the very front of your tongue too, you get a little slightly juicy bubble, and that's where you'll pick up the orange flavours coming out of this beer. And it's very mild. It's not juicy in the way that some of these fruit beers or IPAs are. It's just a nice little subtle characteristic to the beer, and again it blends in very well with the sort of bready sweetness and the yeasty characters in this beer, and also the wheat as well. The wheat and the orange go really quite well together in this beer, but the coriander for me and the particular unique characteristics of the Danish wheat are the top flavours in this beer. That's what really kind of sticks out to me when I'm tasting this beer. But yeah, overall with the flavour, really nice, and it blends together quite well. In the aftertaste, you get a little bit more of the drier hoppy characters, but overall really quite a nice and quite accessible wit beer. So if you enjoy your wheat beers but want them a bit lighter than a Hefeweizen such as Weihenstephan or something like that, then this is one that you maybe should have a go of. I'd like to try some of their other beers as well and see how they come across. But you can get a little bit, the big bready malt base in this one, it has a typical element of that, of the organic beer, but it works really well in this case. So in terms of the mouthfeel of this one, as I would say this is mid-bodied. There's a bit of just a little bit of an attack from the carbonation in there, but overall very smooth. It's a little bit dusty in the mouthfeel too, but that works. As I say, that's a typical characteristic of some of these organic beers, but for this one it works particularly well because it is the wheat beer. It gives it just a little bit more body. There's a bit of malty sweetness in there too. As I say, the wheat character is very smooth and slightly sweet, and you also get a bit of sweetness from the yeasty character in it as well, but which is really quite nice. As I say, the sweetness in there is just a little subtle note, but there's a good bit of spicy character in there too, mainly from the hops. The coriander blends in with this one really quite well. Sometimes the coriander will give you a bit of spice, but it's more of an infused flavour in this, but it works really well. And as you go into the aftertaste, as the beer's just kind of sitting there, you do get a little bit of bitter and dry character around the very front of your tongue. But overall, if you want a wheat beer, as I say, if you want a wheat beer that's a little bit more sessionable and a little bit lighter, then this is one that you should definitely check out. And hopefully I can return to Nørrebro Bryghus and have a go at some of their other beers. The red beer and the brown beer would be the ones that I'd be really interested in, so fingers crossed I can find those at some point fairly soon. I brought this beer back with me from my trip to Copenhagen last time, so hopefully I can get over there again soon and try a few more of their beers. But overall, really nice beer. If you like a lighter wheat beer, then this is one you definitely should have a go of. But as always, I hope you've enjoyed this beer review. Please let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below if you do happen to have tried it. To my Danish viewers, please let me know some other Danish beers that you'd like me to have a look at. Always interesting to review beers from different countries, so don't hesitate to get in touch. But I thank you again for watching my beer reviews. Until the next one, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Check out the Facebook and the Untappd profile, and feel free to connect with me in whatever way you wish. Many more Danish reviews to come, so let me know your favourite beers, and I will catch you soon with my next review. Quite a few Swedish ones to come for you soon as well, but slange just now.